Blizzard just released brand new information about the updates to all of the witch powers. We're going to be seeing this in just 1 week. Season 7 launches on January 21st. There was a new video release from Blizzard and a roadmap to the season. I have another video that I made about that, outlining everything in it, so that's going to be in the description of this video. We're going to look at what Wowhead has posted over here, all of the breakdown for all of the season. There's a whole bunch of new information that was posted, including what they look like for all of the seasonal campaign reputation, and then all of the witch powers that are going to be happening. What we're going to focus on in this video is how you use the witch powers, what they're going to do, and then all of the changes that were made for it. This is going to be the menu that you're going to use in order to slot in your witch powers. Now, each one of them has different abilities and different types of ways that you're going to use them. This up here is going to be your lost power at the very top. That is going to be where you're going to put the ones that you find throughout the map. Now, how you find them throughout the map is as you're going through and you're looking through your dungeons, make sure you look out for these. This will unlock those lost powers for you. It's completely random. So be on the lookout for them so you don't run past them. But if you see something, click on it. So how do you unlock the witch powers? As you go through and you earn your coven reputation, you're going to earn that by doing whispers. You're going to have more and more powers unlocked. You can purchase those with Restless Rot. The Restless Rot is down here in the very bottom of the screen. You collect that throughout the map as you're fighting monsters. It just drops randomly. So as you collect your Restless Rot, you come back to these right here, these little altars here. That will allow you to purchase more witch powers. The higher your coven reputation goes, the more witch powers are going to be unlocked. So at the very beginning, you only have access to a very limited amount of them. But as you do more whispers, more and more of them will unlock for you. And then you can purchase them with the Restless Rot. The Restless Rot is not only used to purchase the powers, but it's also used to upgrade your witch powers. You see right here, you have level 2, level 3. Those are being upgraded straight from this screen here. You actually click on the witch power itself, and then you can upgrade them right there. What upgrading does is that at specific levels for each power, you're going to gain additional benefits to having those powers. And as we hop into the witch powers, you'll get to see what they do when you get there. Each one of these is going to have different types of powers that go along with them. You're going to have your Eldritch powers, you're going to have your Psyche powers, and then you're going to have your Growth and Decay powers alongside of the Lost powers. Now, each of the Lost powers has their own unique one as well. The Piranha is actually going to be its own very unique one. If you want to see what the Piranha looks like, in the video in the description, we'll have a visual of it because it is actually pretty cool. If you've seen Sharknado, that'll kind of give you an idea of what it actually looks like. It's a pretty cool ability that you can use. So that's how you slot in all of the witch powers, but we're going to get to Occult Gems in just a second because the Occult Gems will have their own specific powers based on how you slot in the witch powers. So you can't just go through and put in any witch power and get your Occult Gems to work. You have to figure out what is going to work in conjunction with the other ones. And I have a whole bunch of builds that I'm already putting together. So if you want to take a look at them, you'll get to see how I was using the powers. I'll have all of those updated and posted very, very soon. Mobalytics is in the process of updating, so we get all of the new witch powers done. Let's go take a look at the different witch powers, all of the changes that they made. This is kind of what it's going to look like here. These are your fire bats. The whole theme of all of the colors for this season is going to be this blue, this orange, and this yellow. It looks really, really good together. So for this, we'll give a quick breakdown of all of the powers and how they work, and then we'll cover the changes that they made. They actually made a lot of changes to the powers and how they work. We're going to start with a fire bat. That's what you get to see right here on the screen. That's the picture for it. A deadly swarm of fire bats swarm enemies every 3 seconds. They change that from 2 to 3, but they increase the damage from 15 to 20%, and it's going to be fire damage. At a higher rank, it doesn't have it listed what rank it's going to be, but we'll see when you get into the game. Enemies are also going to be stunned for 3 seconds after being hit 5 times by your fire bat servants. Abyssal Resonance. Every 250 resources spent releases an explosion. That is going to deal 400% instead of 300% shadow damage. Each explosion triggered within 10 seconds of the last one is going to increase the size and the damage by 130%. And that stacks up to 3 times. That's a pretty big boost to your damage there. At rank 10, that third explosion is also going to pull enemies towards you before detonating. There's a lot of different pulling mechanics in this season to make quality of life a lot better. Wave of Woes. Release a wave of woes, damaging an enemy with your skill. So as soon as you hit an enemy, you can release this wave of woes. it deals additional shadow damage, and it echoes the damage to all of the nearby enemies of the same type. At rank 5, that damage is going to be increased by 15% for each echo, and it's guaranteed to echo at least 5 times, so it can strike one target 5 times, even if there's not many around it. So as you can see, as you level up these witch powers, they get better and better every single time that you hit a new milestone with them. Purging Touch. Eldritch effects increase damage against Head Rotten. And this is another example of that, where at rank 10, the bonus extends to all monsters instead of just the Head Rotten. Shaken Soul. Eldritch effects apply vulnerable damage to enemies. This actually goes up to, I believe, if I remember right, almost 10 seconds of vulnerable damage. Now you no longer need to take any sort of vulnerable application in your skills if you're using Shaken Soul. It's going to free up some skills in order to put them into different slots. At rank 10, damage from your Psyche and your Growth and Decay effects will also apply vulnerable damage at half the duration. That means you put this in, everything that you're going to slot in, all of your witch powers, whether it is Eldritch, Psyche, and Growth and Decay, are going to apply vulnerable damage. It's huge. This is a really, really great change and a really good way to change how we build characters. Hex of Flames. On a lucky hit, you have a certain amount of chance to apply Hex of Flames. Hex of Flames is going to deal 40% instead of 10% additional fire damage each time that you deal damage to the target. At rank 7, Hex of Flames is going to explode, dealing damage to all of the nearby enemies when you land a critical hit. That's going to do a ton of AoE damage. Doom Orb. This one is probably one of my favorites. I actually cleared up to probably pit 50 without attacking a single monster. Doom Orb did all of the damage for me. It was really, really cool to see. An ominous orb of pure eldritch enemy circles you, damaging enemies it touches for now 400% instead of 300% fire damage. Doom Orb may launch itself at distant enemies before returning. At rank 5, kills or damaging a boss empowers the orb's damage by 5%. After 100%, the orb explodes, dealing 5,200 damage to nearby enemies before reforming 3 seconds later. Now, 5,200 doesn't sound like a lot. The damage actually scales up really, really high, so it's going to be really fun to see this one in action. Next, we're going to look at the Psyche Powers. Lifelink automatically links your life to up to 3 nearby enemies. The amount of damage that you take is shared with the linked targets as physical damage. Cannot lifelink enemy players. I mean, I guess that makes sense. At rank 15, for 10 seconds after using a defensive, macabre, or subterfuge skill, any linked damage will be guaranteed critical strike. So another way to guarantee some critical strikes here. Hex of Shattering. Damage done by your witchcraft effects afflicts enemies with a Hex of Shattering, causing them to deal reduced damage over 5 seconds. At rank 8, when any Hex effect is applied to Head Rotten, all of the damage is guaranteed to critical strike for 5 seconds. We're going to get hexes and we're going to get auras. So this is going to be part of the way that we build Occult Gems. How you can tell? It says right in the name here, Hex of Shattering, this will be a hex, and then Aura of Misfortune, and that's going to be an aura. So you're going to need these along with the Occult Gems to activate the powers that are on those gems. Aura of Misfortune. Enemies near you have a chance for their attacks to be interrupted. That does not work on bosses. At rank 5, the Aura of Misfortune increases your movement speed by 5% and slows enemies by 30%. Aura of Lament. When you first strike an enemy, it is inflicted with an Aura of Lament, slows it and other nearby enemies by 70%. For each enemy inside the Aura of Lament, you gain 3 instead of 1 primary resources each second. So this is going to be a great source when you are at a lower level. If you can get your Aura of Lament, primary resources is always going to be an issue leveling until you start getting a lot more of your aspects together. So this is going to be a huge help to all of the classes, especially things like druids, where resource management is definitely an issue. If the initial enemy dies, the Aura of Lament is passed on to another nearby enemy, retaining the duration. One enemy may be afflicted every single time and only may occur once every 30 seconds, but I believe this does last for a very long time. Vengeful Spirit, this one got a buff here. Every 19 seconds, a Vengeful Spirit appears for a certain amount of time. While active, all damage taken instead is taken by the spirit. Vengeful Spirit deals 750% damage. At rank 5, when the Vengeful Spirit's life is fully depleted, it rushes towards up to 8 enemies, dealing 2,000 shadow damage. So it's going to come out, it's going to take all of the damage for you, and then when all of the life is gone, it's going to rush all of the enemies around you and then do damage to them. Twilight Warding. Every X seconds, gain a barrier for 5 seconds, absorbing 100 damage. At rank 12, Twilight Warding reflects the enemy's projectiles while active. So this basically gives you a barrier, and it's going to look almost like the monsters that have the reflective shield around them. All of the enemy projectiles that are going to be shot at you are going to get reflected. Growth and decay powers. This is it right here, the Poison Frog. This was a favorite on the PTR. It pulls monsters towards you. It got a little bit of a nerf to the damage that it does. It's still going to be a lot of fun to use. That pull is really, really handy. Summons a Poison Frog servant that attacks and poisons enemies for up to 150% instead of 400% damage over 3 seconds. On death, the frog explodes, violently dealing poison damage instantly damage to the enemy. This explosion will always critically strike. At rank 5, Poison Frog's attack will pull the enemy towards itself and taunt the enemies for 1 second. So they're all going to attack the frog, which is going to be great, especially if you're in a bind. Soul Harvest. Feeds upon the life force of a nearby enemy whenever you use a skill with cooldown, increasing your primary stats by 3% per monster for a certain amount of duration. This one on the PTR I actually used on my Barbarian because we were getting an aspect that was scaling off strength, and this gives you increased strength because that's my primary stat. So we were stacking a ton more of your major stats. So for the druids, for example, you're going to get more wisdom. For the sorks, you're going to get more intellect. For the barbarians, you're going to get more strength. So it's going to scale up just like that. This was actually had a lot of uses for it, and it was very strong. Hex of Whispers. Dealing damage to an enemy afflicts them with a Hex of Whispers that deals shadow damage the next time damage is dealt. Afterwards, Hex of Whispers will jump to another enemy up to a maximum of 6 times. Hex of Whispers may only be applied once every 5 seconds. At rank 7, after bouncing up to 6 enemies, Hex bounces back to you, granting you 15% Fortify and removing all crowd control durations and negative effects on you. That was a little bit of a nerf, well, kind of a big nerf, but that really makes sense because 60% Fortify is massive. So 15% is about on par with what most of the normal skills give you. Decay Augmentation. Your witchcraft effects deal damage dealt over 5 seconds. The damage type is based on your class. At rank 10, whenever your damage over time effects exceed 85% of the target's total life, they are immediately executed. This is a really, really fun way to just have things that you're running past. You do a little bit of damage with them for your witchcraft powers, and then they just die. Grow. After casting an ultimate skill, your servants, minions, and companions are empowered with dark magics, growing larger in size and dealing X amount of increased damage for 15 seconds. In the video, they showed these gigantic wolf as a companion for the druid. They get really, really big, so it's actually pretty cool. At rank 11, your servants, minions, and companions gain 100% critical strike chance when enlarged. So you're going to see a really big buff to all of your minions and all of your companions and stuff for this. This is going to be good. Aura of Siphoning. Conjure an Aura of Decay that deals up to 80% increased damage instead of 50% poison damage to enemies every second. At rank 10, each time the Aura of Siphoning deals damage, you're going to be healed for 1% of your maximum life. This is really, really good because it's a percentage, so it's going to heal a lot. And then that's for each time that Aura deals damage. So it's going to be a big one. The Cycle. Dealing damage with your skills has a 15% chance to grow flowers on the ground. When an enemy is near, the flowers deal poison damage to that enemy over 5 seconds. If an ally is near, the flowers are going to heal for 6% of your maximum life. The flowers wither away after use. A flower may grow once every 2 seconds per enemy. So that's a really big buff because it was once every 5 seconds. At rank 5, the damage and healing affects all enemies or all allies near the flower. So that's a really big one here. Your lost powers. Breath of the Coven. Dealing damage or applying a crowd control effect with any of your witch powers effects increases your attack speed by up to a certain amount for 10 seconds, stacking once per unique witchcraft effect. Witchcraft effects are Eldritch, Psyche, and Growth and Decay. At rank 8, gain 40% lucky hit chance while the bonus from the Eldritch, Psyche, and Growth and Decay are active at once. When you build something like this, because I use this on the PTR, this gives you a absolutely massive increase to your attack speed. Not only that, but you get that lucky hit chance if you can activate all 3 of them at one time. Now that is actually very difficult to do depending on the occult gems that you're going to be using, but it is something in a very unique way in order to build a build if you need attack speed, which is what I needed on the PTR for the build that I was running. So this was actually a really great solution to that build. Hex Specialization increases the potency of your hex effects by a certain amount. At rank 10, increase the critical strike chance by 10 against enemies affected by your hex. Aura Specialization. The size of your aura is increased by a certain amount. At rank 10, increase the critical strike damage by 50% against enemies inside your aura effects. The aura specialization and the hex specialization put together in one with a couple different auras and hexes slotted made it look really cool. You had these gigantic auras and hexes follow like underneath you. So your character had these amazing visual effects with it. It's going to be pretty cool to see how everybody slots all of these. And then we get the Piranado. This is going to be a giant tornado of piranhas. When an enemy is afflicted by both hex and aura effects, so you're going to have to use both of them, a Piranado is summoned, pulling enemies towards it and dealing physical damage over 12 seconds. This can occur once every 20 seconds. At rank 5, the Piranado moves itself towards nearby enemies on its own. So those are your witch powers. Now we talked about those working in conjunction with your occult gems. But what are the occult gems? We're going to take a look at what they do here and how you're going to use those in conjunction with your witch powers. So they have 3 different types of occult gems. You have your uncommon, then you have your rare, and then you have your legendary. Now, as I put these on the PTR, most of the time, the legendaries didn't necessarily mean that that was your best option to take. So you're going to have to figure out what is going to fit in and what you can activate through your witch powers. Now, what that means, we'll take a look right at the very beginning. So what these are going to be doing are your uncommon ones. All you're going to do for a lot of these is just slot them in. You don't need to do combinations with these. You just need to put them in, and then you get things like 40% more overpowered damage to hexed enemies. So if you have a hex on, it's going to give you that 40% increased overpowered damage. So that's going to be great for a lot of builds, like let's say a pulverized druid that you're running overpowered damage right off the bat. This is going to be an uncommon gem that you can put in that's going to give you increased damage as long as you have a hex on. Where it starts to get a little bit more complicated is that when you get down to some of the rare ones, well, you have 3 or more growth and decay powers slotted. You generate 30% more barrier, gain 30% more fortify, and have 30% more thorns. Now, if you look, remember, we had all of your growth and decay powers here. So now you have to figure out how to get 3 of these active. You only have 5 slots, and then still maintain all of the other 2 occult gems that you have. So let's say that you wanted to put that one in, and you get your growth and decay slotted. Then you can't use things like, well, you have 3 or more Eldritch Witch powers slotted, you gain 25% movement speed and critical strike chance. You only have 5 slots, and your lost power doesn't count, or at least it didn't on the PTR, maybe it'll be changing, but it didn't count towards getting your 3. So you have 5 slots, so you're going to have to figure out how to build your powers, also based on what you've unlocked so far through the seasonal reputation that you've gained. So you're going to figure out how to slot in all of these with the new witch powers. It makes building characters a lot of fun. Now, if you don't have any way to do it, you just put your witch powers in, put your occult gems in. The great thing about your occult gems is that no matter what, if you look, you get 160 armor and 8 resistance to all. You don't have to worry about picking diamonds versus skulls. You just put one in and you get both stats. It's really, really great. It's going to make building characters a lot different and a lot easier. Now, they did change some of the gems here. So let's take a look at what changed. Some of them got nerfed, some of them got buffed. We're going to look at the uncommon ones here. Your non-unique Eldritch Witch powers are going to gain 35% potency. Phantom Sting, you deal 15% increased overpower to hex enemies. So they thought it was a little bit too strong right off the bat. So they're going to be nerfing that one back down to 15%. Elder Sigil, your agility, corpse, incarnate, mastery, weapon mastery, and wrath skills are going to deal increased direct damage to hex enemies. This skill now has a potency skill tag instead of just potency. Witching Hour. While you have 3 or more Eldritch Witch power slotted, every 1 second instead of 5, the next core skill that you're going to cast is going to gain the Eldritch tag. That is going to be used in conjunction with a lot of different powers. There's a couple of things that if you attack something with an Eldritch power, you gain a buff. So now you're going to be using your main core abilities as an Eldritch ability that you're going to be attacking. So you get additional bonuses as you attack. So this is just going into all of this new theory crafting that we're going to be doing, which is going to be really, really cool. Vulture Talon. While you have an aura active, you deal damage over time 50% faster. So they buff that one. It's going to tick faster, which means that you're going to do damage a lot faster to all of the monsters. Pointed Fingers. Your summons deal 15% increased direct damage to hex enemies. So this one was a little bit of a nerf. If you saw how much we're going to be getting buffed, so we're going to get 100% critical strike chance for your summons. So this is going to be a little bit of a nerf to that damage, but we're getting buffs in other places. Moonlight Ward. For each rank in your slotted unique witch power, gain 3% damage reduction and 0.5% maximum resistances to all elements. So they nerfed that one back a little bit because you were probably gaining a ton of max resistances. Duststone. For each of your auras and hexes an enemy is afflicted by, they take 2.5% increased damage from you. I thought this one would get nerfed because that 4% was going to be scaling really, really high. So the 2.5% makes a lot of sense for this. So overall, some really, really great changes to this Witch Powers. This is going to add a huge level of complexity to how you build your builds this season. So it's going to be a ton of fun. I cannot wait to see what everybody is going to be running. I'm going to be live streaming the new season as soon as it goes up. I'll be running a Barbarian, so you'll get to see the new Quake builds because the Quake stuff is going to be a lot of fun this season. I've been mentioning this in every video. At the top of the description of this video will be a link to Discord. I have been setting up groups for the community to go out and run together. We do this every single season, and it is a ton of fun. If you want to get in on the groups and go out and explore the new seasonal content with a whole bunch of other people, hop into Discord, go straight to the announcement channel, and then react to that, and I will get you in a group. I'm only going to do this for the next couple days, so if you want to do it, hop in. I'm also live every single night. I would love for you guys to stop by and tell me what you think of the new season, how you're going to be playing it. So stop by, say hi, Theorycraft with me. Catch you on the clip side.